All right, so we just had to dive into this one.
We had to.
Donald Trump,
Yeah.
former president, current presidential candidate, sat down with Joe Rogan for a nearly 3-hour interview.
3 hours.
3 hour.
Wow.
Yeah.
And our listeners sent in a ton of articles about this. So clearly you're as fascinated by this as we are.
Yeah.
You've got Trump, who's really laser focused on his base, and then those younger voters that Rogan pulls in.
Right.
And they're going deep on this platform that's known for kind of letting people go deep.
Yeah, exactly. It's not like your typical, soundbite interview or anything like that.
Right.
So our mission today is to kind of cut through the noise and figure out, what does this interview actually tell us about Trump's strategy going into 2024?
Yeah.
And what is Rogan's take on all this reveal about the wider political landscape?
Yeah. What does it all mean?
So buckle up. This is going to be a wild ride.
It is a wild ride.
So to start, let's look at what Trump himself said.
Okay.
Early on, he tells Rogan that he made some mistakes, specifically regretting certain personnel choices.
Interesting.
He called out neocons, which is shorthand for neoconservatives who are known for their, hawkish foreign policy views.
Right.
And mentions being surrounded by disloyal people.
Ooh, that's interesting.
Yeah?
That disloyal comment. That's interesting.
It almost sounds like he's setting up a narrative here.
Right. It's not just admitting a misstep.
Yeah.
Right. It's implying that there were forces working against him from within his own administration.
Yeah.
This plays perfectly into that outsider image that Trump cultivates.
Totally.
He's telling voters, even when I had the power of the presidency, the system was rigged against me.
Yeah, it makes you wonder if those disloyal people were blocking his true agenda,
Right.
the one he's going to really unleash if elected again. So strategic move for sure.
Sure.
But then Rogan throws a curveball.
Okay.
He flat out tells Trump, you said a lot of wild sets.
Oh, my gosh.
And get this, he argues that that's why Trump is so popular. So here's where Rogan's analysis gets really insightful.
Okay.
He claims that CNN and other outlets, by constantly highlighting Trump's most outrageous statements, actually helped him.
We did him a favor.
Wait, how does that work?
So Rogan is saying that the constant outrage,
Right.
Trump said what? Headlines made Trump seem more authentic compared to polished politicians. It's like they accidentally gave him street cred by trying to make him look bad.
That's wild.
It is.
And Trump seemed to love it.
Oh, yeah.
Almost like he was asking Rogan for confirmation.
Yeah.
Like, tell me more about why I'm such a phenomenon.
Exactly. It plays into this whole idea of Trump as the disruptor, the guy who doesn't play by the rules.
Yeah.
And it sets up this dynamic where any criticism can be spun as further proof that he's shaking things up, which his base eats up.
Totally. Okay, so Trump is leaning hard into the outsider image.
Yeah.
And Rogan is arguing that even negative attention just strengthens that. But then Rogan goes even further with this whole rebel idea.
Okay.
He claims that in today's world, conservatives are the real rebels, the ones bucking the system.
This is where we see Rogan tapping into a deep vein of cultural anxiety.
Okay.
Because traditionally conservatism meant upholding existing norms and institutions.
Right.
But Rogan is suggesting that the script has flipped.
Uh-huh.
He's pointing to what he sees as a growing trend of liberals being more in favor of censorship, of silencing views they disagree with.
And remember Elon Musk, Mr. Free Speech Absolutist himself,
I was just thinking about that.
chimed in online to agree with Rogan.
Wow.
That's got to give this idea some serious weight, especially among, younger tech-savvy folks.
Absolutely. Whether or not you agree with this conservatives as rebels framing,
Right.
it's clearly resonating with a lot of people.
Yeah.
And that's something that Trump is 100% aware of and playing into with this Rogan appearance.
Yeah.
He's positioning himself as the leader of this rebellion against the so-called woke establishment.
Okay, so we've got Trump as the outsider.
Yes.
The rebel fighting against the system.
Right.
But what about his actual policies?
Right.
What does this interview tell us about what he might actually do if he wins in 2024?
Well, one clue comes from a surprising partnership he announced.
Okay.
He's teaming up with Robert F. Kennedy Jr.
Okay.
on a platform that they're calling Make America Healthy Again.
Hold up, RFK Jr.
Yes.
The vaccine guy. That's a bold move, to say the least.
It's certainly controversial.
Yeah.
RFK Jr.'s views on vaccines are definitely outside the mainstream scientific consensus.
Right.
However, there's another layer to this partnership that we need to understand.
Okay.
RFK Jr. is also known for his concerns about environmental toxins, something that Rogan brought up during the interview.
Right. Rogan mentioned chemicals in food declining military recruitment because of health problems, stuff like that. And Trump seemed to agree that those are serious issues.
Exactly. So while the vaccine stuff is definitely going to grab headlines, this partnership could also signal a broader focus on environmental health.
Okay.
Which could resonate with voters concerned about those issues.
Makes you wonder, though, how does Trump, the guy who rolled back environmental regulations, square that with this Make America Healthy Again idea?
Right.
Especially since he even pushed back on RFK Jr.'s stance on oil during the interview.
Yeah.
Seems like there's some tension there.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah.
This partnership is fascinating because it's not just about aligning on every issue.
Right.
It's about strategically tapping into different segments of the electorate. Trump's bringing RFK Jr. on board to appeal to voters concerned about health and environmental issues, even if it means some disagreement on specifics like oil.
Yeah.
It's a calculated move, no doubt about it.
So we're seeing Trump the strategist at work here.
Yeah.
But let's not forget this was a Joe Rogan interview.
Right.
And Rogan's not just going to sit back and let Trump control the narrative.
Right.
He pushes back, he challenges Trump, and he brings up some pretty sensitive topics.
He does.
Like the Afghanistan withdrawal, for example.
Yeah, both Rogan and Trump were highly critical of how the Biden administration handled that.
Yeah.
Rogan brought up all that U.S. military equipment left behind, which ended up in Taliban parades.
Right.
A pretty potent symbol of American weakness, at least in their view.
And Trump chimed in with this story about General Mark Milley arguing that it was actually cheaper to abandon the equipment than to fly it out.
Wow.
Whether that's true or not, it's a damning accusation.
Yeah.
It feeds into this narrative that the Biden administration is incompetent, out of touch, and putting cost-cutting ahead of national security.
Right.
Again, whether or not you buy into that, it's a powerful message that resonates with a certain segment of the electorate.
It does.
So we've covered a lot of ground here. Trump's image as the outsider.
Yes.
His surprising partnership with RFK Jr. The Afghanistan withdrawal debacle.
Right.
And there's still so much more to unpack from this interview.
Oh, yeah, there is.
We haven't even gotten to Trump's thoughts on UFOs.
No, we haven't.
His response to being compared to Hitler.
Oh, yeah.
Or his reflections on what he calls his biggest mistake as president.
I can't wait.
Stick with us as we continue to delve into the Trump-Rogan interview and uncover what it reveals about Trump's strategy, Rogan's influence, and the state of American politics today.
This is good stuff. Welcome back.
All right, so we left off talking about the Afghanistan withdrawal and how Rogan and Trump kind of used it to, paint a picture of the Biden administration as
not doing so hot.
Yeah, shall we say not great at foreign policy.
Right.
So let's switch gears for a minute to something a little more out there.
A little lighter.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Rogan, being Rogan, steered the conversation towards UFOs.
Of course he did.
And the possibility of extraterrestrial life.
Had to.
So this is where we see Rogan's influence really shaping the conversation.
Okay.
He's known for, being open to these kind of fringe topics.
Right.
And he clearly piqued Trump's curiosity, even if Trump tried to play it cool a little bit.
Of course.
Right. Trump claimed he had heard firsthand accounts from pilots about, unexplained stuff in the sky.
Oh, really?
Yeah. And even though he said it wasn't like his main concern, he didn't rule out life on other planets.
It's interesting, right?
Yeah.
Because on the one hand, it feeds into this image of Trump as a straight talker.
Right.
Someone who's not afraid to acknowledge the unthinkable.
Right.
But on the other hand, it also plays into this growing distrust of institutions and experts.
Yeah.
It's like he's saying, hey, maybe the government's hiding something from us, but I'm the guy who's going to get to the bottom of it.
Totally. It's like he's tapping into that same energy that fuels conspiracy theories, but without explicitly endorsing them.
Right.
Smart move, politically speaking.
Yeah, very smart.
Okay, let's bring it back down to earth, shall we?
Okay.
Rogan brought up something that's been making headlines lately, the comparisons of Trump to Hitler.
Oh, boy.
So Rogan specifically mentioned comments made by Kamala Harris, which is significant because it directly ties this rhetoric to the current administration to Trump's opponents.
Right, right.
And Trump, being Trump, didn't hold back in his response.
What did he say?
He called Harris a very low IQ person.
Oh, wow.
And went on this whole rant about how presidential candidates should have to take cognitive tests.
So this is classic Trump, right?
Yeah.
Instead of engaging with the substance of the criticism, he deflects by attacking his opponent personally.
Totally.
And not just any personal attack, but one that plays into these long-standing stereotypes about women in positions of power.
Right. It's like he's saying she's not just wrong. She's not even capable of thinking clearly.
Right.
It's a tactic designed to undermine her credibility, to make people question her competence as a leader.
And let's not forget, this comes on the heels of Trump's whole Make America Healthy Again thing with RFK Jr.
Right.
By suggesting that Harris is mentally unfit, he's implicitly positioning himself as the strong, stable leader.
Right.
The one who can fix America's problems.
Okay, so we've got Trump the outsider, the rebel, the healthy leader. But even he admits he doesn't always make the best decisions.
This is true.
Remember earlier when you talked about regretting some of his personnel choices?
Yeah.
He specifically mentioned John Bolton, his former national security advisor,
Right.
who's since become, a vocal critic of Trump.
Yeah.
So Trump told Rogan that a businessman friend had actually warned him about Bolton before he appointed him.
Oh, really?
But he didn't listen.
This is fascinating on a couple of levels.
Yeah.
First, it reveals something about Trump's decision-making process.
Yeah.
He seems to rely heavily on his gut instinct and personal connections, even when those instincts go against advice from experienced advisors.
And second, it plays into this narrative that Trump is constantly being undermined by those around him. It's like he's saying, see, even when I try to do the right thing, these disloyal people mess it up.
Oh, so it all goes back.
Yeah.
It's a way to deflect blame and reinforce that outsider image.
Right.
He's telling voters, I'm the only one you can trust. Everyone else is part of the problem.
Yeah. Okay, but let's circle back to Rogan's point about conservatives being the rebels these days.
Yeah.
That whole idea is still rattling around in my brain.
There'll be two.
It's like, how did we get to a point where the group that's traditionally been associated with upholding the status quo is now seen as the counterculture?
Well, Rogan's argument hinges on this idea that the left has become increasingly intolerant of dissenting views.
Oh.
He points to things like cancel culture and the perceived dominance of a certain ideology in academia and media.
And honestly, that message is resonating with some people, particularly those who feel like their voices are being silenced or marginalized. It's like they see Trump and Rogan as these brave truth tellers willing to speak out against the woke mob.
Right. It's like they've created this alternate reality where they're the ones being oppressed.
Yeah.
Even though they hold a lot of power and influence. And the fact that someone like Elon Musk, with his massive platform, is amplifying this message just gives it more legitimacy.
It's a potent mix of populism, anti-elitism, and a healthy dose of paranoia.
It really is.
And Trump, with his knack for tapping into those feelings, is using this Rogan interview to position himself as the champion of this movement.
But here's the thing.
Okay.
It's not just about appealing to his base. He's also trying to expand his reach to bring in new voters who might be receptive to this message.
And that's where Rogan comes in.
Right.
He provides a platform for Trump to reach an audience that might not otherwise pay attention to traditional political interviews.
Yeah.
And he does it in a way that feels authentic, unscripted, even edgy.
Exactly.
Yeah.
This interview wasn't just about policy positions or campaign promises.
No.
It was about creating a narrative, a feeling and emotional connection with voters.
Yeah.
And on that level, it was incredibly effective.
So we've got Trump, the outsider, the rebel, the healthy leader.
Yes.
But now we're also seeing Trump, the storyteller, the master manipulator of emotions.
And that's what makes him so dangerous.
Right.
And so fascinating to analyze.
Yeah.
He understands the power of narrative, the way it can shape people's perceptions and beliefs.
Yeah.
And he's using that power to his advantage in this election.
All right. Welcome back to the deep dive.
Back again.
We've covered a lot of ground with this Trump-Rogan interview.
Oh, yeah.
From the, wild zest to UFOs.
Yeah.
But before we wrap up,
Yeah.
we need to dig into a couple more key moments, starting with that Make America Healthy Again platform.
Okay.
And Trump's partnership with RFK Jr.
Yeah, this one's got layers.
Yeah.
You know, on the surface, it's easy to get caught up in the controversy
Right.
around RFK Jr.'s views on vaccines.
Yeah.
Which, to be clear,
Yeah.
are not supported by mainstream science.
Right.
But if we look deeper, there's a strategic calculation at play here.
Right. RFK Jr. is also known for his concerns about environmental toxins.
Yeah.
And their impact on health. And during the interview, Rogan actually brought up declining military recruitment rates, linking it to potential health issues.
It's clever, right?
Yeah.
Trump can tap into those anxieties about environmental health, which resonate with a lot of voters, while still maintaining plausible deniability on the more controversial stuff.
Right.
It's like he's saying, I care about your health, but I'm not going to go full anti-vax.
And remember, he even pushed back on RFK Jr.'s stance on oil.
He did.
So it's not like a total alignment on every issue.
Right.
But rather a strategic alliance.
Exactly.
To reach a broader audience.
You broaden Trump's appeal beyond his base.
Okay, so we've got Trump, the outsider, the rebel, the healthy leader, the storyteller.
Uh-huh.
Is there anything this guy can't be?
Well, let's not forget, he also presented himself as the victim.
Right.
Particularly when Rogan brought up those comparisons to Hitler.
Yeah, Trump's response to that was pretty characteristic.
Right.
He went on the attack, called Kamala Harris a very low IQ person.
Right.
And suggesting she was cracking under pressure.
Of course.
Not exactly a nuanced rebuttal.
Classic Trump tactic, right?
Yeah.
He deflects, he insults, he plays the victim.
Yeah.
It's a way to avoid engaging with the actual substance of the criticism.
Right.
And instead, shift the focus to his opponent's supposed flaws.
And it works.
It does.
It riles up his base and reinforces this narrative that he's constantly being unfairly attacked by the establishment.
Absolutely.
It's also worth noting the timing here.
Okay.
This comes right after he announced the Make America Healthy Again platform with RFK Jr.
Mm-hmm.
By suggesting that Harris is mentally unfit, he's further strengthening that contrast between himself as the strong, decisive leader and his opponents as weak and incompetent.
So after spending all this time dissecting this interview, what's the big takeaway?
Yeah, what does it tell us about Trump's strategy for 2024?
I think it's clear that Trump is doubling down on the strategies that worked for him in the past, cultivating that outsider image, appealing to people's anxieties, and using personal attacks to deflect criticism.
Right.
But he's also evolving.
Okay.
Getting more sophisticated in how he packages those messages.
Right. He's not just the brash reality TV star anymore.
No.
He's using carefully crafted narratives and strategic alliances to broaden his appeal and tap into deeper cultural currents.
And Rogan's platform provides the perfect venue for this.
Yeah.
It's not just about reaching Rogan's massive audience.
Right.
It's about reaching them in a way that feels authentic, unscripted, and even rebellious.
So what does this all mean for the rest of us,
the
voters who are trying to make sense of all of this?
I think the biggest takeaway is that we need to be more critical consumers of information.
Yeah.
Especially when it comes from sources like this interview.
Right.
We need to look beyond the surface-level rhetoric and analyze the deeper strategies at play.
Right. We need to ask ourselves, who benefits from this narrative?
Yeah.
What are the underlying assumptions? Right.
And most importantly, what are the potential consequences?
Because in the end, this isn't just about Trump or Rogan.
Right.
It's about the future of our country and the kind of society we want to live in.
Yeah.
And that's something we all have a stake in.
So there you have it. Our deep dive into the Trump-Rogan interview.
This was a good one.
We've explored the strategies, the narratives, the implications.
Yeah.
Now it's up to you to decide what you make of it all.
We've given you the tools. Now go forth and think critically.